Hey everybody, welcome. This is the first in a series of videos about how to make money in a cover band, specifically in a cover band that plays weddings, corporate events, private parties, that kind of stuff. So we're not talking about $100 a night, we're talking about thousands of dollars per gig, which is going to translate into hundreds of dollars per band member per gig. This video is going to be an overview of how to get your band ready to start booking gigs. So we're going to talk about putting a band together if you don't already have a band, how to go about choosing the music that you're going to play, how to present your band best in order to get gigs, and finally, how to prepare for successful gigs once you do book some. So who am I and why should you listen to anything I have to say on the subject? Well, good question. I've been playing in bands for pretty much my whole life, but most of those bands have been originals. I joined my first cover band about 10 years ago when a friend of mine who I used to play in an originals band with told me he was starting a band with the intent of playing weddings and they needed a bass player. None of us had ever been in a cover band. We all kind of had to figure out how to navigate this very new world on our own, and we figured it out. Over the years, we have learned and we've built this band up to eventually become one of the most in-demand and popular wedding event bands in our area. My role in the band, I mentioned I play bass, but I'm also the booker and de facto manager of the band. So I feel like I'm in a good position to talk about how to take a band from being a group of people who are practicing in a basement without any prospects to booking 30, 40, 50 high-paying gigs every year. Of course, all of this is based on my own experience in my particular area, which is the Pacific Northwest of the US. If you're in a different part of the country or a different part of the world altogether, some of this stuff might be different, some of it might not apply, but in general, most of the info in here should be fairly universal to most people who want to get into this type of work. So if you're not already in a band, your first job obviously is to form a band, right? You need to find some bandmates. This is a business, so you need to find bandmates who are responsible, considerate, easy to get along with, trustworthy. Part of the job description of being in a band like this is getting along with your bandmates. So you guys don't have to be best friends, but you need to get along. You need to have good relationships. So you need to find bandmates who are good at maintaining good relationships. You also want to make sure that all the bandmates have more or less the same vision for and commitment to the band. And of course, everybody has to be up to spec musically, meaning everybody has to be able to learn the songs on their own, ideally by ear, and to play those songs pretty well. By the way, I'm assuming that you are a competent professional level musician. If you're not, that should be the first thing that you address. If your musicianship isn't up to snuff, none of the stuff we talk about in any of these videos is really going to be able to help you that much. Good musicianship is the price of entry in this world. Once the band is formed and everybody understands their roles, which we'll talk more about later in the video, you're probably going to want to write up a contract spelling out how you're going to split up the money, whether or not you're going to have a band fund for general band expenses, and who's going to be essentially the treasurer of the band, who's going to collect payments at gigs and then distribute the payments among the band members. And if you do decide to go with the band fund, who's going to manage that fund? This might seem like overkill, but trust me, it's always a good idea to have things in writing when there's money involved, just in case something goes south in the future. The contract itself doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to hire a lawyer or anything. Just write out all those different points and have each band member sign it. Next, you need to find your niche. What kind of a band are you going to be? Are you going to focus on a certain genre? Funk band, country band? Are you going to be a tribute act? Are you going to focus purely on just covering one artist's music? Are you going to focus on a certain era? 80s music, 90s music, 70s music? Are you going to do some sort of creative interpretation, like you cover rock songs, but you do them in a reggae style? So what you want to consider with this decision is you want to have an identity, right? You want people to know what they're getting when they hire you. And that means having some kind of specialization. But you don't want to specialize so narrowly that you talk yourself out of a lot of potential gigs, right? So how many clients are going to want to hire an Eagles tribute band, or a 90s trip hop cover band, right? You want to have enough breadth in your repertoire that you're going to appeal to a broad range of clients, but enough focus to let your potential clients easily understand what they're going to get when they hire you. Once you've figured out your niche, then you can get down to the business of building your set. And this is a really fun part. So this is where you get to choose what songs you get to play. In terms of the volume of songs that you learn at first, in my area, it might be different for other areas, but ideally you're shooting to eventually have kind of a minimum of a 4-hour set. When you're first starting out, you probably don't need that much music. You can probably book some gigs, especially bar gigs, with a 1 or 2 hour set. I would shoot for 2 hours, which would be around 30 songs. We estimate about 15 songs per hour. So of course, based on your niche, you're gonna choose around 30 songs and get to work learning those songs. As you're choosing songs, keep this in mind. You're gonna wanna choose songs that your target client is gonna be excited to hear. You're not going to be choosing songs purely based on what songs you think are going to be fun to play, right? You obviously want to have fun doing this. You don't want to hate the music that you're playing, but ultimately, again, this is a business. You want to aim for client satisfaction. So base your song choices on what you think people are going to be excited to hear. And pro tip, danceable music is always a good bet. As you're learning these songs, remember to take the music seriously. Learn the songs and play them as well as you possibly can. Like I mentioned earlier, if the music isn't up to spec, nothing else you do is going to take you very far. So even if there are some songs in your set that you're not particularly excited about playing, that doesn't matter. Take every single song seriously and play it as well as you can. So you're each going to learn the songs on your own and then rehearse together as a band once every 1 or 2 weeks until you have the full set. That can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on everybody's schedules and how quickly you all are able to learn all the songs. But don't rush this process because, like I said, you have to have the music really dialed in if you want to be successful. And one last thing to consider as you're learning all this music, you probably are going to want some charts. If you've never played in a cover band, if you're coming from the originals world, that might seem weird, but in the cover band world, charts are not frowned upon at all, at least where I am. And you know, if you think about the length of set that a typical originals band plays, 30 minutes to maybe 2 hours if you're like a big headliner. Cover band, like I said earlier, your minimum length of a set is usually around 2 hours, and it just goes up from there. So, and as the longer you exist as a band, the more music you're gonna have to learn. When we first started, we were using paper charts and music stands. That's a bit cumbersome, so pretty early on, we switched over to tablets. You can get tablet holders that attach to your mic stands, and you can make your charts PDF form, and now we just all have our own individual tablet with simple charts. That makes it really easy. All right, so that's all the music stuff, putting together the band, choosing the music you're gonna play, and learning that music. Now let's talk about all the other stuff that you have to do to prepare your band to book some gigs. First, you're gonna want some audio recordings or some video of the band. This is pretty much non-negotiable. You're gonna have a really hard time getting any gigs if you don't at least have some decent audio recordings. If nobody in your band has experience recording music, find a cheap local studio and record 3 or 4 of your best songs. You're also going to want to consider what kind of visual presentation your band is going to put forward. What kind of colors are you going to dress in? What type of outfits are you going to wear? Is it going to be minimalist, all black? Is it going to be suits? Is it going to be something more outrageous? In my band, we have like 3 levels of dress depending on the type of event we're playing. Suits for weddings and the swankier corporate events, business casual kind of outfits for maybe the slightly more casual corporate events, and then full-on casual for your street fairs and birthday parties and that sort of thing. Depending on the niche that you guys decided on, you might want to coordinate your visual presentation with your musical presentation, right? So if you're in an 80s cover band, you probably want to wear 80s clothes. If you're in a funk cover band, maybe you wear something that makes sense with funk, like rhinestone outfits or something like that. You're also going to want some band photos. They don't need to be super pro. They can be camera phone style if you have a decent camera on your phone. Even better if you know some basic Photoshop stuff, you can crop and color correct, but you want to have some kind of photos so that people can anticipate the visual experience of seeing your band. You're going to need to have a sound person. Ideally, this is going to be somebody who is already in the band rather than an external sound person that you hire. Because if you bring in an external sound person, that's one more person you have to pay. If there's nobody in your band that can do sound or that wants to do sound, yes, of course, you can have that discussion and decide to hire a sound person. Just know that that's going to be a little bit less money that each one of you is going to make per gig because you have to pay the sound person. If there's somebody who can do sound, who is already a band member, or who is up for learning how to do sound, go that route, because doing live sound isn't rocket science. Yes, it takes some work. Some people are really, really good at it and they make whole careers out of it. You don't have to be that good. You just have to know the basics. If you have a good ear and you can understand some technical stuff and put in the work, you can learn how to do sound. If the sound person is a band member and they do every aspect of the sound work, meaning they haul the PA to the gig, they set up the PA, they mic all the instruments, they tear down the PA. If they do everything, you should probably consider giving them a little bit more money than everybody else in the band, because that's a pretty big job. If the whole band chips in on that stuff, so maybe the sound person hauls the gear, but everybody helps them load the gear into the venue, and everybody chips in setting up the PA and mics their own stuff, and the sound person is really just the person who kind of like goes out front and listens and makes adjustment when you're doing sound check, maybe that doesn't warrant the extra fee. Along with the sound person, you're going to have to designate a booker, and this one is almost definitely, at least at first, going to have to be a band member rather than an external booker, because no external booker worth their salt is going to want to start booking for a band who has never played a gig. So choose the band member who is the most organized, who gets excited about making spreadsheets, and who is a really good communicator. Those are the skills: organization and communication. Booking is all about making connections with people, making them feel heard, and being prompt in your communication, as well as keeping track of all of the information that a client gives you so that when you show up to the gig, you know exactly what you need to do and you don't accidentally forget to play a special song, or you don't show up half an hour late because you misread their email. And similarly to how we were talking about the extra fee for the sound person if they're doing all the sound work on their own, a booker is probably going to be doing all the booking on their own. It usually works best that way rather than sharing things, because then things can get lost in translation from one band member to another. So whoever's doing the booking in your band should probably get a little bit of an extra fee for that. The way it works in my band is for every gig that pays at least $1,000, which is pretty much every gig these days. At first that wasn't the case, but I get 7% of the total rate that we're charging on top of my normal band member payment. You're also going to need to have an online presence. So that means a website and some kind of social media. Your website is going to have all the stuff that you've been putting together as you've been on this building the band journey. So your audio/video stuff that you made, your photos that you took, contact info for the booker, a brief description of the band, and possibly a list of all the songs that you play. For social media, you don't have to have an account on every possible social media platform. We personally just do Instagram, but choose at least one: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook maybe. That's going to be where you put any photos or videos or information about gigs, both upcoming gigs and kind of cool videos that you've taken at gigs or photos that you've taken at gigs, and really anything that you think would be at all possibly interesting to people. Really what your social media accounts are there for is to show that you are a real band and that you are out in the world doing real things. You are a legitimate cover band. And finally, this last one is easy to overlook, but very important. You want to practice setting up and tearing down your gear. And you want to do that for a couple of reasons. First, just obviously, you want to be somewhat efficient in your setup and teardown, right? Especially if you're sharing bills, you don't want to make the second band wait forever while you slowly get off the stage. But even more importantly, that'll give you an idea of exactly what gear you need so that you don't end up getting to a gig and then realizing, oh shoot, we forgot this crucial piece of gear. Also, it'll just help you work out any glitches that you really don't want to have to work out during a gig. And that's everything. So once you've gone through everything we just talked about, you are ready to start booking gigs. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. So if you want to catch that video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about anything I said in this video, or if I left anything out, please leave a comment, because that'll help me determine whether I need to go more in depth with any of the points that we covered here. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.